Have you ever felt like your mind is a never-ending storm, swirling with worries, regrets, and frustrations? You try to calm it, but the thoughts just keep pulling you back into the chaos, don't they? It's exhausting, isn't it? That constant noise, the unrelenting chatter of your own mind. What if I told you there's a secret, a profound, ancient secret, hidden in plain sight? A key that has been passed down through centuries, one that can unlock stillness even in the most restless soul. For thousands of years, Buddhist masters have shared this wisdom through stories. These aren't just bedtime tales, they're maps, guiding us toward a life of clarity, compassion, and a freedom we rarely think is possible. Imagine living without the weight of frustration or the grip of anger. Imagine finding peace, not in some faraway place, but right here, right now, within yourself. Today, we're not just exploring stories, we're uncovering secrets that can transform the way you see the world and the way you see yourself. These aren't lessons trapped in the past. They're alive, waiting for you to embrace them and apply them to your modern life. Let's start with a story that reveals a surprising truth about frustration. It's a story that might just make you rethink the way you react to life's challenges. Take a deep breath. Get ready to unlock the first secret. It's one that could change everything. Imagine this. A man is rowing his small boat along a tranquil river. The sun is setting, painting the sky in soft gold and fiery orange. The water mirrors the colors of the sky, and the world feels quiet and still. The man takes a deep breath, feeling completely at peace, as the gentle rhythm of his oars cuts through the calm surface. For him, this moment is perfect, a rare escape from the noise of life. But then, out of nowhere, he notices another boat drifting toward him. At first, it's far away, just a speck in the distance. But as it gets closer, he realizes it's heading straight for his boat. He tries to stay calm, calling out politely, "Hey, watch where you're going." But the boat doesn't change course. It keeps coming, closer and closer. Frustration builds in his chest. He shouts louder this time, his voice sharp with anger. "Move aside! Are you blind?" But still, no response. His heart pounds as the boat collides with his own, the impact jolting him out of his peace. Ready to unleash his fury, he peers inside the other boat, prepared to confront whoever is responsible. But then, he freezes. The boat is empty. No one was steering it. It was just drifting aimlessly, carried by the river's current. And just like that, his anger vanishes. It melts away as quickly as it came, replaced by a wave of realization. There was no one to blame. The collision wasn't personal. It just happened. Now pause and reflect. How often do we get angry at our own empty boats? A rude comment from a stranger, an unfair situation at work, a reckless driver cutting us off. Things that we instinctively react to, convinced their attacks aimed directly at us. But most of the time, they're not. These moments are like that empty boat, drifting along the currents of life, unintentional and impersonal. The secret here is simple, yet profound. We don't have to hold on to that anger. By letting go of our ego, by resisting the urge to see every inconvenience as a personal slight, we free ourselves. We can navigate the river of life with the same calm the man found after his realization. The water will still ripple, boats will still collide, but we'll be at peace, unshaken by the things we once allowed to disrupt us. This is the secret of the empty boat. Most of life's frustrations are only as big as the meaning we give them. Let go, and you'll find a clarity and calm you never thought possible. Imagine this. A monk is walking along a narrow mountain path, surrounded by the stillness of the forest. The air is crisp, the sunlight filters softly through the trees, and for a moment, all seems peaceful. But then, out of nowhere, the silence is shattered by a deep, guttural roar. He turns and sees a tiger, its fiery eyes locked onto him, its powerful body charging through the underbrush. Instinct takes over, and the monk runs. His heart races as he sprints along the winding path, his robes fluttering behind him. The tiger's footsteps grow louder, closer, relentless. In his desperation, he spots a vine hanging over the edge of a cliff. Without hesitation, he grabs it and begins to climb down, clinging tightly as the tiger snarls above him. But as he descends, he glances downward, and his heart sinks. Another tiger is pacing at the base of the cliff, its sharp teeth glinting in the sunlight. He is trapped. A tiger above, a tiger below, and nothing but the fragile vine between him and certain death. His grip tightens as panic begins to rise. Then, amidst the chaos, he notices something. A small, wild strawberry growing from the side of the cliff. Its bright red color stands out against the rocky surface. For a moment, he forgets the tigers. Carefully, he reaches out, plucks the strawberry, and places it in his mouth. The sweetness explodes on his tongue, and for that fleeting moment, the world disappears. There are no tigers, no cliffs, no fear, just the pure, simple joy of the strawberry. This story isn't about denying danger or pretending problems don't exist. The monk's situation was real, and his fears were justified. But in that moment, he chose not to let fear consume him. He couldn't control the tigers, but he could choose how to experience that moment. Life often feels like we're caught between those tigers. Problems surround us, looming deadlines, strained relationships, uncertain futures. The weight of it all can make us feel like there's no escape. But here's the secret. Even in the most difficult situations, there's always a strawberry. It might be small, a kind word, a deep breath, the warmth of sunlight on your skin, but it's there. Mindfulness isn't about ignoring the tigers in your life. It's about noticing the strawberry. It's about anchoring yourself in the present moment, finding the sweetness that exists despite the challenges. The tigers may not go away, but when you learn to savor the simple joys, you'll discover a calm and strength you never thought possible. The world may roar, but within you, there's a place of stillness waiting to be found. All it takes is noticing that one small strawberry. Imagine this. You're walking through the forest, enjoying the fresh air and the stillness around you. Suddenly, out of nowhere, an arrow strikes you. The pain is sharp, piercing, and immediate. It's overwhelming, isn't it? But then, something unexpected happens. A second arrow hits you, right in the same spot. This one doesn't come from outside. It comes from your own hands. You've picked it up and driven it into your wound, making the pain twice as unbearable. This is the image the Buddha painted for his disciples to explain the nature of suffering. The first arrow, he said, represents life's unavoidable struggles. It's the pain we can't escape. Loss, disappointment, illness, rejection. These are things that happen to all of us simply because we're alive. The second arrow, however, is different. That arrow isn't inevitable. It's self-inflicted. It's the anger, the resentment, the fear, or the guilt that we layer on top of our pain. Think about the last time something hurt you, a harsh word, a failure, an unexpected loss. Maybe you felt sadness or pain at first. That was the first arrow. But then, what came next? Did you find yourself replaying the situation in your mind, imagining what you could have said or done differently? Did you hold on to anger, wishing things had turned out another way? Did the pain spiral into resentment or bitterness? That's the second arrow. It doesn't just hurt. It keeps the wound open, preventing it from healing. Here's the secret the Buddha revealed. While we can't always avoid the first arrow, we can dodge the second. The key is awareness. When pain strikes, we often react automatically, letting our emotions take over. But what if, instead of reacting, we paused? What if we noticed our thoughts before they spiraled out of control? What if we recognized the second arrow for what it is, an unnecessary source of suffering, and simply let it go? The next time life hits you with that first arrow, stop for a moment. Acknowledge the pain. It's okay to feel it. But then, ask yourself, am I holding on to a second arrow? Am I adding anger, blame, or regret to what I'm already feeling? If the answer is yes, take a deep breath and release it. you'll be amazed at how much lighter you'll feel when you stop carrying unnecessary burdens. This is the power of the Buddhist secret, recognizing that while pain is part of life, suffering is often a choice. By letting go of the second arrow, you can find peace even in the midst of hardship. And in that peace, you'll discover a strength you never knew you had. The arrows may come, but how you respond is entirely up to you. A heartbroken mother approached the Buddha, her face etched with despair. Her only son, her entire world, had passed away suddenly. Clutching his lifeless body in her arms, she fell to her knees before him, begging for a miracle. Her voice trembled as she pleaded, "Master, you have the power to heal. Please, bring my son back to life. I cannot bear this pain." The Buddha looked at her with profound compassion. He could see the depth of her suffering, the unbearable weight of her grief. He did not dismiss her pain or try to console her with empty words. Instead, he said, "I will help you, but first, you must complete a task. Go into the village and bring me a mustard seed from a household that has never experienced death. Once you have it, return to me, and I will bring your son back to life." With a flicker of hope in her eyes, the mother rose and hurried to the first house she saw. Knocking on the door, she explained her task and asked for a mustard seed. The family inside listened with sympathy, but they shook their heads. "We wish we could help, but we have lost our father." She moved to the next house and the next, repeating her plea. Each time, she received the same response. One family had lost a child. Another had said goodbye to a beloved grandmother. Another spoke of a brother who had passed years ago but whose absence was still felt. House after house, door after door, the story was the same. Death had visited every family. As the day wore on, the mother began to realize the profound truth behind the Buddha's task. Her grief, as heavy and unique as it felt, was not hers alone. Every person she spoke to carried their own stories of loss, their own burdens of love and longing for those who had gone. Her tears began to shift from despair to understanding. When she returned to the Buddha, she no longer carried the lifeless body of her son. Instead, she carried a new wisdom in her heart. Falling to her knees once more, she said, "Master, I could not find a single house untouched by death. Now I understand. My suffering is not mine alone. It is part of life." The Buddha nodded gently and said, "You have learned the truth. Death touches all who live, and suffering is woven into the fabric of existence. But in this understanding, there is also healing. When you see that you are not alone, when you accept the impermanence of life, you free yourself from the chains of grief." This story carries a secret that is both simple and profound. Suffering is universal, and so is the path to healing. When we face loss, it's easy to feel isolated, as though our pain is greater than anyone else's. But when we look beyond ourselves, we see that every person we meet carries their own struggles, their own stories of love and loss. This truth doesn't diminish the weight of our grief, but it gives us a new perspective. It reminds us that we are part of a shared human experience. And when we accept that life is fleeting, that everything we love is impermanent, we can find peace, not by clinging to what was, but by embracing what is. The Buddha didn't bring the woman's son back to life, but he gave her something even more powerful, the understanding that while suffering is inevitable, so is healing. It begins with connection, compassion, and the courage to let go. This is the secret of the mustard seed, a secret that can open the door to peace, even in the midst of loss. In a quiet village nestled among rolling hills, a humble farmer lived a simple life. One day, his only horse, the one he relied on to plow his fields and carry his burdens, ran away. The stable was empty, and the farmer stood quietly, staring at the open gate. When his neighbors heard the news, they rushed over to console him. "What terrible luck!" they exclaimed. "How will you manage without your horse?" The farmer, calm and composed, simply shrugged and said, "Maybe." The neighbors were puzzled by his response but left him alone, convinced he was suppressing his disappointment. A few days later, the missing horse returned. But not only did it come back, it brought with it a group of wild horses from the mountains. Now, the farmer had not just one horse, but several. When the neighbors saw this, they came back, excited. "What amazing luck! Now you have so many horses. You are a fortunate man." But again, the farmer only smiled and said, "Maybe." Soon after, the farmer's son decided to tame one of the wild horses. As he climbed onto its back, the horse bucked fiercely, throwing him to the ground. His leg was broken badly, leaving him unable to help with the farm work. Once again, the neighbors came by to share their thoughts. "What bad luck," they said. "Now your son is injured and can't work. How unfortunate." The farmer, as calm as ever, replied, "Maybe." Not long after, the country was thrown into turmoil, and a war broke out. Soldiers came to the village, drafting all the young men to fight in the army. Many families were left grieving as their sons marched off to battle. But the farmer's son, with his broken leg, was spared. He stayed home, safe from the horrors of war. Once again, the neighbors returned, this time with smiles. "What incredible luck," they said. "Your son was saved because of his injury." And as always, the farmer responded with the same gentle wisdom. Maybe. This story holds a profound secret. Life is unpredictable. What seems like misfortune today might turn out to be a blessing tomorrow, and what feels like good luck could lead to unforeseen challenges. The truth is, we don't have the full picture. We're quick to label events as good or bad, but in reality, they are just moments in the ever-changing flow of life. The farmer's secret is his detachment. He doesn't get swept away by the highs or crushed by the lows. He accepts each moment as it comes, without rushing to judgment. He understands that life is like a river, sometimes calm, sometimes turbulent, but always flowing. This doesn't mean we shouldn't feel joy or sadness when things happen. It means we can hold those emotions lightly, knowing that they are part of a bigger picture we can't yet see. By staying open, by trusting in life's flow, we can find a deeper sense of peace, even in uncertainty. The next time something happens in your life, whether it feels like a blessing or a curse, pause. Instead of labeling it, take a step back and say to yourself, maybe. You might just find that what seems like an ending is actually a new beginning, and what feels like a setback is paving the way for something greater. That's the secret, to embrace life's unpredictability with calm acceptance. A Zen monk once sat with his students during a quiet tea ceremony. The room was calm, the only sounds being the gentle clink of teacups and the soft rustle of robes as everyone sat in silent meditation. The monk picked up a simple clay teacup, held it in his hands, and gazed at it for a long moment. The students, curious about his intent, watched him closely. Finally, the monk spoke, his voice steady, yet filled with a quiet depth. "This teacup," he said, "is already broken." The students exchanged puzzled glances. They looked at the teacup. It was whole, undamaged, and perfectly intact. One of the younger students, unable to hold back his curiosity, asked, "Master, the cup is fine. Why do you say it is broken?" The monk smiled gently and placed the cup on the table in front of him. "In my mind," he began, "this cup is already broken. One day, perhaps tomorrow, perhaps years from now, it will slip from my hands or crack under pressure. It will no longer exist in the way it does now. That is inevitable. But because I know it is already broken, I can fully appreciate it as it is, right here, right now. I can enjoy its beauty, its usefulness, and the moments we share, without clinging to it." The students fell silent, reflecting on his words. The monk continued, his tone calm but filled with wisdom. "This isn't just about a teacup. It's about everything in life. Everything we hold dear, our possessions, our relationships, even our own lives, are impermanent. When we accept that truth, we can cherish them fully without the fear of losing them. And when the time comes to let them go, we can do so with grace and peace." One of the older students, his eyes glistening with understanding, asked, "Master, does that mean we should not love things deeply, knowing they will one day be gone?" The monk shook his head, his smile warm and reassuring. "No, it means the opposite. When we accept that something is temporary, we can love it even more deeply. We no longer hold on out of fear of loss. We love it for what it is in this moment, knowing that it, like everything else, is part of the natural flow of life. In this way, we free our hearts from unnecessary suffering and find peace." The students sat in quiet meditation, the weight of the lessons sinking in. They began to see the teacup as more than just an object. It became a symbol of life's fragility, a reminder to appreciate what they had in the present moment. From that day forward, each time they held their teacups, they did so with greater mindfulness, cherishing every sip, every moment. And when something broke, whether it was a cup or something far more precious, they remembered the monk's lesson. They understood that letting go didn't mean losing. It meant embracing the impermanence of all things with an open heart. The secret here is profound, yet liberating. Non-attachment doesn't mean detaching from love or joy. It means experiencing them fully, without clinging, without fear. By embracing impermanence, we can live with greater peace, appreciating the beauty of each moment as it comes, and releasing it when it goes. That's where true freedom lies, in loving without holding on, in living without the weight of fear. The teacup, already broken, teaches us how to live. One day, as the Buddha sat teaching under the shade of a tree, a man approached him, his face twisted with anger. The man had heard of the Buddha's growing influence and was filled with resentment and jealousy. Determined to provoke him, the man stood before the Buddha and unleashed a torrent of insults. "You're a fraud," he shouted. "You pretend to be wise, but you're just deceiving people. Who do you think you are to act so superior?" The man's voice was harsh, his words cutting, but the Buddha remained calm. He didn't flinch. He didn't argue. He simply sat there, his expression serene, as if the insults were nothing more than leaves carried by the wind. The man, frustrated by the Buddha's silence, shouted even louder. "Why don't you say something? Do my words not bother you? Do you think you're above being insulted?" His anger boiled over, expecting the Buddha to retaliate, to fight back. Finally, the Buddha raised his eyes and spoke, his voice gentle, yet filled with wisdom. "Tell me," he said, "if someone offers you a gift and you refuse to accept it, to whom does the gift belong?" The man was taken aback. The question seemed out of place, yet he answered instinctively. It would still belong to the person who offered it. If the gift is not accepted, it remains theirs. The Buddha nodded and smiled. "Exactly. And in the same way, if you offer me your anger and I refuse to accept it, does it not remain yours?" The man stood in stunned silence. His anger, which moments ago had felt so powerful, suddenly seemed meaningless. He realized that no matter how much he insulted the Buddha, his words had no effect. The Buddha had chosen not to take the gift of anger, and instead, it was the man himself who remained burdened by it. The Buddha continued, his voice calm and filled with compassion. Anger is like a hot coal you pick up with the intention of throwing it at someone. But in the process, it is your hand that gets burned. Let go of the coal, and you will no longer feel its heat. Let go of your anger, and you will no longer carry its pain. The man's expression softened as the Buddha's words sank in. For the first time, he saw that his anger wasn't harming the Buddha, it was only harming himself. Humbled, he bowed his head and said, "Teach me how to let go, Master." This story holds a secret so powerful that it can transform the way we live. We often accept negativity from others, angry words, hurtful actions, as if we have no choice. We let their emotions enter our hearts, disturbing our peace. But the Buddha shows us another way. We don't have to pick up the gift of anger, hatred, or negativity. We can choose not to accept it. And when we do, it remains with the giver, never touching our inner calm. The next time someone tries to provoke you, pause. Remember the Buddha's words. You don't have to pick up the anger. You don't have to let someone else's negativity disturb your peace. By refusing to engage, you protect yourself. You stay centered, calm, and free. This is the secret of the Buddha's wisdom. It's not about winning arguments or proving someone wrong. It's about choosing peace over conflict, compassion over retaliation. When you let go of the need to react, you unlock a strength within yourself that no one can take away. The gift of anger may be offered, but you always have the power to refuse it. In the bustling city of Rajagaha, the streets were filled with the murmurs of people who had gathered to hear the Buddha speak. His teachings of peace and compassion had drawn countless followers, but not everyone welcomed his growing influence. Among them was his cousin Devadatta, consumed by jealousy and ambition. Devadatta sought to undermine the Buddha, to tarnish his teachings, and even to harm him. One day, Devadatta devised a cruel plan. He approached the royal elephant keepers and bribed them to release Nalagiri, a massive elephant known for its wild temper, into the streets where the Buddha would be walking. He hoped the raging elephant would trample and kill the Buddha, silencing his voice forever. As the Buddha walked through the city, his disciples noticed a sudden commotion. People were running, screaming, "The elephant is loose! Get out of the way!" In the distance, Nalagiri appeared, his enormous frame shaking the ground as he charged forward, his eyes blazing with fury. The disciples urged the Buddha to take shelter, to run to safety. But the Buddha remained calm. He continued walking, his face serene, his heart filled not with fear, but with compassion. As the elephant drew closer, his rage undeniable, the Buddha stopped and turned toward him. He stood firm, exuding an aura of deep, unwavering love. In that moment, the Buddha did something remarkable. He raised one hand, not in defense, but in a gesture of peace. His mind focused entirely on radiating metta, loving kindness. He directed his compassion not only toward the people fleeing in fear, but toward the elephant itself. He saw Nalagiri not as an enemy, but as a frightened and suffering being. As Nalagiri charged closer, something incredible happened. The elephant's wild eyes softened. His thunderous steps slowed. The anger in his body seemed to dissolve as he approached the Buddha, now calm and subdued. When he reached the Buddha, he stopped entirely, bowing his massive head. The Buddha gently touched Nalagiri's forehead, speaking to him in soft, soothing tones. The people watching were stunned. They had witnessed the impossible. A raging elephant, capable of immense destruction, had been tamed, not with force, but with compassion. Even Devadatta's followers, who had hoped for the Buddha's demise, were left speechless, their jealousy replaced with awe. When the danger had passed, the Buddha turned to his disciples and said, "Hatred cannot be overcome by hatred. It can only be overcome by love. This is an eternal truth." This story carries a secret that is both humbling and transformative: the power of compassion. Even in the face of hostility, when it seems impossible to respond with kindness, choosing love can change everything. Compassion is not weakness. It is the greatest strength we possess. It has the power to calm not only others, but also ourselves. Think about the conflicts in your own life. How often do we react to anger, to cruelty with resentment? And how often does it truly resolve anything? The next time you face a situation filled with hostility, remember this story. Pause. Instead of reacting with fear or frustration, try responding with kindness. You may not be taming an elephant, but you might just tame the tension in a difficult conversation, the anger in someone's heart, or even the unrest within yourself. The Buddha didn't just teach peace, he lived it. His unwavering compassion in the face of danger reminds us of the incredible potential we have to transform the world around us, not with force, but with love. It's not always easy, but it's always powerful, and the results might surprise you. The Buddha once sat with his disciples, teaching them about the nature of his wisdom and how it should be understood. To help them grasp its true purpose, he shared a simple yet profound parable. Imagine, he began, a man finds himself stranded on the shore of a wide and dangerous river. The water is deep, the current's strong, and he knows he must cross to the other side to find safety and peace. But there is no bridge, no boat, no easy way across. What does he do? The disciples listened closely, curious to hear the answer. The man gathers logs, branches, and leaves, the Buddha continued. He ties them together with vines and builds a raft. With great effort, he paddles across the river, fighting the currents until he finally reaches the other side. He is safe now, free from the dangers of the river. The Buddha paused for a moment before asking, "Now tell me, once the man reaches the far shore, what should he do with the raft? Should he carry it on his back as he continues his journey? Or should he leave it behind, recognizing that it has served its purpose?" One of the disciples replied, "He should leave it behind, Master. The raft was helpful to cross the river, but now it is no longer needed." The Buddha nodded with a gentle smile. "Exactly. In the same way, my teachings are like that raft. They are tools to help you cross the river of suffering and ignorance. But once you have reached the other shore, you should let go of them. Do not cling to them as if they are the goal. They are meant to guide you, not to be carried as a burden." The disciples sat in thoughtful silence, the wisdom of the parable settling into their minds. This story holds a powerful secret: flexibility. The teachings of the Buddha, or any spiritual wisdom, are tools. They are not meant to be worshipped or clung to rigidly. Instead, they are there to help us navigate the challenges of life, to guide us toward understanding and inner peace. But once we have crossed the river of suffering, holding on to those teachings too tightly can weigh us down, just as carrying a raft would slow the man's journey. Life is constantly changing, and clinging to the past, whether it's a belief, a habit, or even a spiritual lesson, can keep us from moving forward. The key is to know when to use wisdom and when to let it go. This doesn't mean abandoning what we've learned. It means staying open and adaptable, ready to embrace the next part of the journey. The next time you face a challenge, think of the raft. Use the tools and knowledge you have to navigate the situation. But once you've moved past it, don't carry unnecessary burdens with you. Life isn't about holding on to what was, it's about flowing with what is. This is the secret of the raft. Wisdom is a tool, not an anchor. By embracing its purpose and letting it go when the time comes, we free ourselves to move forward, unburdened and at peace. That's the path to true freedom. Let's take a step back and look at the bigger picture. Each of these stories holds a secret, a simple yet profound truth. They are like small treasures, each offering a glimpse into how we can live with more peace, joy, and clarity. Together, they reveal a timeless lesson. Life is fleeting, unpredictable, and often challenging. But within every moment, there is something precious, something sweet, a strawberry waiting to be noticed. Think about the monk caught between the tigers. His situation was dire, with no escape in sight. Yet, even in the face of overwhelming danger, he found a strawberry, a tiny moment of sweetness in the chaos. He didn't deny the reality of his circumstances. He simply chose to savor what was in front of him. That strawberry wasn't just a fruit. It was a reminder to live in the present moment, to appreciate the beauty that exists even in life's most difficult times. Now apply that to your own life. When you're stuck in traffic, your frustration rising as the minutes tick by, can you pause and find a strawberry? Maybe it's the music on the radio, the soft hum of the engine, or even the rare chance to sit quietly with your thoughts. When work feels overwhelming, can you take a moment to breathe deeply, to notice the small victories you've achieved, or to appreciate a kind word from a colleague? These are your strawberries, hidden joys waiting to be discovered. The stories also teach us to embrace impermanence. The teacup is already broken, yet it is beautiful. The raft is meant to be left behind after it serves its purpose. The empty boat reminds us not to cling to anger or ego. These lessons aren't about giving up. They're about letting go of what no longer serves us. When we stop holding on to the past or fearing the future, we free ourselves to truly live in the now. Life is unpredictable. Some days, it feels like everything is going wrong. Other days, everything seems to fall into place. The farmer's wisdom, his maybe, teaches us to meet life's ups and downs with equanimity. We don't know what tomorrow holds, but we do know we can face it with calm and acceptance. The Buddha's encounter with the raging elephant shows us the power of compassion. Even when others approach us with hostility, we have the choice to respond with love instead of anger. And when we do, we not only transform the situation, but also protect our own peace. So, what's the takeaway? Life is filled with tigers, broken teacups, runaway horses, and unexpected twists. But it's also filled with strawberries, moments of joy, beauty, and meaning. The secret is learning to recognize them, even when life feels overwhelming. The next time you face a challenge, pause. Instead of reacting with frustration, fear, or anger, ask yourself, where's the strawberry in this moment? It might be something small, something easy to overlook, but it's there. And when you find it, savor it. Let it remind you that even in life's chaos, there is sweetness to be found. These aren't just ancient teachings, they are tools for modern life. Use them when you're feeling stuck, lost, or overwhelmed. Let them guide you toward a life of greater mindfulness, compassion, and joy. Because no matter what you're facing, there is always a strawberry waiting for you. You just have to look for it. Let me share with you one final secret, one that ties everything we've explored together. Peace isn't something you find out there, waiting for you at the end of a road or hidden in some distant place. It isn't given to you by others or brought by perfect circumstances. Peace is something you uncover within yourself. It's been there all along, beneath the noise, beneath the chaos, waiting for you to notice it. The stories we've shared today are not just tales from long ago. They are mirrors, reflecting the wisdom already inside you. Each story carries a lesson, but the truth is, these lessons resonate with you because they awaken something you already know, deep down. The strawberry between the tigers, the raft left behind, the empty boat, all of these are reminders of the potential for calm, clarity, and strength that has always been within you. So how do we uncover this peace? The answer lies in mindfulness, compassion, and acceptance. When we practice mindfulness, we anchor ourselves in the present moment, letting go of the regrets of the past and the anxieties of the future. We see things as they are, not as we wish them to be. In compassion, we soften our hearts, not just toward others, but toward ourselves. We choose love over anger, kindness over resentment. And in acceptance, we release the need to control everything, trusting the flow of life and embracing its impermanence. These practices aren't easy. They require patience, courage, and a willingness to look within. But with each step you take, you'll begin to feel the difference. The noise in your mind will quiet, the weight of frustration and fear will lighten, and you'll find moments of clarity and calm growing stronger, like the sun breaking through clouds after a storm. As you carry these stories with you, let them be your companions on this journey. When life feels overwhelming, remember the empty boat, the teacup already broken, the farmer's maybe. These aren't just lessons, they are tools to help you navigate life's challenges with grace and understanding. Thank you for walking this path with me today. It's been an honor to share these secrets with you. May they guide you toward a deeper sense of peace and a clearer connection to the wisdom that's always been within you. Remember, the journey isn't about becoming someone new. It's about uncovering the calm, compassionate, and mindful person you already are. May you find peace in every step forward.